pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Let's see, we have quorum, so we will get started here with the consent agenda. Item 3A, approval of the minutes of the January 13th, 2026 board meeting. Everything look correct? Any thoughts, ideas? Anything needs to change? Item 3B, discussion and possible action to approve the following contracts and agreements for fiscal year 25 with Main Event for the 8th grade field trip. Anything particular on that? Item 3C, discussion of possible action to approve the following out-of-town, out-of-state overnight trips. A, high school girls basketball playoffs. B, high school boys basketball playoffs. Item C, Kirkpatrick Communications Conference.
So just a quick note about those. The girls basketball and boys basketball, the thought is where we think they're going to be close enough that they won't need to stay over, and our goal would be that they don't, because it's within an hour or so. But just in case there's weather or just something happens where they do end up, they would rather have pre-approval knowing that they have that option, but we do not intend them to stay overnight. In fact, we've been trying to limit costs through all activities to keep costs down for everybody, and that's one of the things we've had a lot of discussion about is how far we're traveling, but then also so that we don't have to stay overnight. So this is kind of more of a precaution in case something weird happens or something changes that we don't expect, but it's approved before our next, because it would happen before our next board meeting.
Thanks for the clarification. Item 3D, approve the additions to the following activity fund accounts. Number 1, golf 813. Any questions? All right, item 4.
Okay, so starting out with activity fund, there's not a lot of new things to talk about. It's hovering right around the same. It's dropped down a little bit, about 40,000 from where it was last month. That's completely normal. Some spring sports are starting up, and so they're kind of using their funds to order stuff to get ready for that. All the accounts are positive though. Nobody's in the red, so everything's good with activity.
Real quick, we need to go back to the consent agenda and approve the consent agenda because this is outside of the consent agenda, correct?
Oh,
This is the last item.
This is
It's the last time.
This is the last.
Approval, okay, thank you, I'm sorry. Proceed.
oh yeah.
On the function summary report, really same thing. We're hovering. If you add, so I'll just kind of go over some things. If you add encumbered, which is our POs outstanding, our purchase orders outstanding, and our expended, we're hovering right around 7.4 million. To give a little context to that, last year we spent at the end of the year around 19.8 million. So we're doing really good as far as spending less money, and we have to because we don't have these large carryovers from years past. We got to a point where that had to be spent, or we just had to spend it. Any questions so far on that? Then onto the board tracking sheet. I mentioned last month we've started to collect our property, our ad valorem taxes, and we've gotten to the point where we've collected most of that. There may be just a little more that comes in throughout the year, probably, another 70,000. I would say is pretty close. We may go over that, but most of those taxes are collected in the early spring, and that's when we start getting them. Not much there. One thing I would note is we're about to, back to the function summary report, I've told you guys in the past that the building fund got kind of low because we spent the 2 years worth of funds on the track project. We are about to, it'll probably happen February 14th or 15th is when we usually get our Redbud funds will come in. That's usually around 350,000 the first time we receive it, and then we'll receive another one in March for another 350,000. So around 700,000. Most of the other funds we've started to collect are collecting, or that's really the only one. There's just a few smaller ones. Any questions on the financials?
Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second, roll call vote?
Reiner,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes. Item number 4, approve the general fund non-payroll encumbrances for fiscal year 26, numbers 409 through 429 for $17,026.36. The fiscal year 26 change orders for general funds of $14,411.89, and the general fund payroll numbers 70,000 through 70,616 in the amount of $13,445,528.
So I would just go over a few of the POs, starting with 414. I would hit some of the bigger ones. That's a PO to Amazon coming out of our technology budget, just for spare parts to repair Chromebooks and stuff like that. And you guys, I think, have seen those. Every once in a while, we have to run one of those to get parts. The next one I would talk about is PO 424 to Marshall Environmental Management. We received a concern about air quality in the high school office, and we're just doing our due diligence as far as testing that and stuff. We actually have a test from around 3 years ago, and everything was fine. So we have no reason to be concerned, but it's one of those things where we have to do our due diligence and make sure. So that's what that is. PO 425 to Sigma Technology is E-Rate Consulting Services. I think I'm going to let Adam talk about this, because whenever we get into the technology, we're kind of out of my realm of expertise.
Yeah. That's just a normal one. You probably remember it from the last couple of years, but Kellogg and Sovereign does our kind of all of our filing for E-Rate. So we have a category 1, which is our internet services. So they competitively bid that every year just to make sure we're getting the best deal on everything. And then they also competitively bid our internal connections, which is like our switches and access points and stuff like that. So that's just, that fee is for them to file all that and make sure we're in compliance with everything. And they put it out for competitive bidding, and they help us go through the bids and stuff like that. So we do have a new E-Rate budget. It's a 5-year budget. I think we have, $300 and some $1,000 we can spend over 5 years, and our discount rate on that is 50%. So the federal government through the E-Rate program pays for half of that, and so we can it helps schools upgrade their their networks without a big cost to the school. So it's a really good program for schools. So
It saves us a lot of money in the long
It
run. And the last PO I would talk about is PO 429 to COSA. This is paid out of Project 613 funds, which is federal funds for special services. It's a smaller amount every year, but Heather Williams is going, and she's taking some of her staff to the Oklahoma Directors of Special Services Conference. And that's what those funds are specifically allocated for, is to go to professional development. So, any questions?
Number 7, is that just a monthly cost? What's the land? That is on the
change order.
Yeah.
So, change orders, sometimes a kind of weird thing happens. We had snow removal on a PO because we were expecting it.
Okay.
The snow removal PO we had was about 3,000, so it ended up being more than we expected. And so instead of putting part of it on that line and then putting the rest on another line, to make it cleaner, we just put a new line.
Okay.
So
And so Land Care takes care of our snow removal as well.
They do.
They do, okay.
Yeah.
And so if I can ask then, what was the cost? Is it $8,100 to
Yeah.
remove the snow?
Yes. Yeah.
Or was it the 8,100 plus the 3,000 that was anticipated?
No, just 8,100. We put it on a brand new line just to make it clean.
And that is removing snow and also salting, correct?
The majority of that is the parking lots.
Yeah.
So under normal circumstances, we would handle sidewalks in-house. We don't have the tools or equipment to do the parking lots.
Okay.
So we make a decision on the parking lots based on how much snow we're going to get and what's the temperature going to be, future temperature, and how long is that snow gonna stay in the parking lot before we pull the trigger to have
Mhm.
a third party come and remove snow from the lots.
Okay, good, thank you. Any questions about any of the others?
I make a motion to approve the encumbrances as presented.
Second.
Here in a second, roll call vote?
Reiner,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Wallstaff.
Yes. Item number 5, discussion of the snow day.
Speaking of snow removal, so appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the week-long snow days, and I think this, scenario that we just passed through kind of had a little bit of everything, and so I do want to take a little bit of time on this and really go through a lot of details. I think it'll be good for the community to hear just all the ins and outs that are being considered through all of this, and then also for you guys to be able to make notes and follow up with questions as we go, or just after the end to say, what about this, what about that? I mean, even just knowing it costs some money to get things ready to go and things like that. So and what I think I'm going to do is go through a timeline of events and just kind of, now I won't probably hit on everything. There'll probably be some details, that I may miss, but generally speaking, it will be, pretty much step by step of these were the thoughts along the way. So starting with Friday, we knew based on the National Weather Service, and to clarify that, the National Weather Service has a webinar anytime. It may actually be daily, but we get notifications when the weather's looking like it's going to be bad. So, and I say we, it's superintendents. And then they start having webinars leading up to. So they'll usually have a morning webinar and an afternoon webinar, anywhere from a day or two leading up to an event that they're predicting, could be bad, or whether it's severe weather or snow or things like that. So on leading into Friday, there was a webinar in the morning on that Thursday, and they had kind of predicted, weather. And they also do a good job of talking specifically to certain areas, because if you just watch the news, there's a lot that goes into that as far as they need viewers and things like that. And so, and they also talk very generally speaking. So Oklahoma is going to have record snow, things like that. But we've got to look more specific at our area. So we have a subscription where they will send us out notices and things through our email. And so on that Thursday in the morning, they had a webinar, and they kind of said that on Friday they predicted there could be snow, sleet, ice starting anywhere from noon to 4 on Friday. And so then, but they kind of said, there's a chance of that, which is a pretty wide window. So then at 2 o'clock on Thursday, they said about the same thing. And they really, it was really hard to predict because the window was so big, 12 to 4. And then the one thing that he did say that I think probably scared a lot of superintendents was, he said, we're telling our families to be home by 1. So in the meantime of the morning of Thursday and the afternoon of Thursday, we had been discussing internally about early release. Like if we get them to school, we feel like the morning's going to be fine. Maybe we just release it at noon when they're saying it's going to get bad. Well, found out that to do that, to get through lunches, that's really 1 o'clock. So our earliest release time on any given day would be about 1 o'clock to get through all of our elementary, middle school, and high school lunches, which we would want to do if we're having school. So that was a lot of the conversation leading into the 2 o'clock. After the 2 o'clock, and the statement was made, I would tell them to be in by 1 o'clock. that is when a lot of superintendents, also I would tell you this, big districts don't even look at early release because it's way too complicated for them. But for us, we probably could manage it a little bit better. By the time we had probably kind of figured out a lot that everyone was closing at that point. So then you kind of run into a situation where and superintendents talk a lot through all this. So the benefit to us for that is we have families coming from everywhere. So for them to be driving their roads and giving updates, it's good for me because I can tell, oh, we've got families coming from Yukon and Mustang and Piedmont and Putnam City. And so if they're saying it's bad there, I don't have to drive out to all those places to figure that out. So they started closing pretty easily, but there were some of us that kind of felt like, gosh, I'm just not sure about that one. You know, like it could go later. The other thing we do know is that history would tell us that if it comes earlier, so if it would have hit about noon, it becomes very chaotic at that point because a lot of parents in the past start showing up to check their kids out. And we have seen this time and time again where even if it's not terribly bad in that moment, it's a constant, we need this kid, we need this kid, we need this kid. And so we knew that was a possibility anyways, and then you're always running into the possibility of anytime there's that kind of first weather event, a lot of people, oh, we're gonna have early release or late start, which we'll talk about later, and they just keep their kids home. It's just kind of a different vibe to it. But at that point, honestly, it was everybody else was closed, and even for us to consider having an early release, we would have been the only ones doing it. And you would hate, in my mind, I would say this, I would hate to be wrong and the only one doing it. And now we've got people having a hard time getting home because it came at 11 instead of 12. And, you know, again, you're the only one that made that bad decision, and if that's what it turned out to be. Now, what we know is that's not what ended up happening, and that's unfortunate for all of us because, you know, we essentially lost a day, you know, that wouldn't have had to if it was accurately predicted. So let's see. A side note of all of that was while that was being discussed, we had basketball teams that were in a tournament that on that Thursday when the weather report started coming out, they had started looking at moving those championship games to the morning of Friday because that was not predicted to be bad. And initially we had said, as we typically do, like if you close school, you close activities. And initially I'd even called the other superintendents and said, because we didn't know if we were going to be in the championship just yet, but as the day progressed when we played our games, then it started to become clear that that was a possibility. So I'd reached out to the superintendents and said, hey, just so you guys know, if we win and make it to the championship, if we're out of school, we typically don't have activities. And they understood that, but they kind of said, well, they moved it up, so, you know, I mean, we would be willing to play if you guys would be willing to play, but we also understand and will respect if you don't. And so that was kind of left lingering at that moment, but I did tell them, I said, just so you know. Well, then they started talking about when the makeup days would be, and it was going to be that following week, which we knew based on the prediction, well, that probably wasn't going to happen either. So we did kind of switch gears late Thursday evening, about Friday morning, knowing that all the predictions were later in the afternoon. Our teams at that point had both won, so they were both in that championship in the morning, so we knew when they were playing. And again, talked to the other superintendents and decided, okay, we will reassess in the morning, but we will go ahead and let them play because there's not going to be a makeup time after this weekend is done, which that turned out to be accurate as well. So that was a side note, and we typically don't do that, I would say, but in that case, tried to maybe use some logic to say, okay, maybe in this situation that makes sense. We did have some students at OKMEA in Tulsa. They had left on Wednesday. We were a little bit worried about them being stuck in Tulsa because they weren't supposed to return until Saturday. And so we just kept in constant communication with them. Initially, they had said that they were thinking about leaving earlier Saturday. Then it went to later Friday. Then it ended up just, again, through conversation with everybody, they ended up coming back on Friday morning as well. So we pretty much had everybody coming back and dispersing then by Friday afternoon. So, as we know, Friday came and the weather held off longer than anticipated, and so that was, unfortunate. But then we were into Monday and Tuesday. Those days were much easier decisions to make because the snow had come in quite a bit, and the temperatures were low, nothing was moving, nothing was going anywhere. But that's when we started having to make some decisions about our campus and our facilities. We knew that the goal was to try to be in as quick as possible. So at the time of Monday, I mean, we were still optimistic of even, probably realistically Wednesday, Thursday. And so we knew there's no more precipitation supposed to come. Temperatures aren't going to go anywhere. So we thought if we clear it and put some salt down, gives it a chance to all melt. And so Mr. Mont did a good job of organizing that, getting that done. And, and that does have a cost associated with it, as we've learned. And that becomes a challenge because, you want to have school, but it comes at a cost. But what you can't do is you can't have any ice on any sidewalks, parking lots. And parking lots are really the scary part because they are black surfaces. When that refreezes, you really won't see it, and you slip, and now you've got injuries and things like that. So to even have a chance to have school, you really have to clear that stuff before you let people come back. And so that's what Mr. Mott began working on. We had discussion about activities. You're always going to have the request, hey, can we still have practice? Can we still have this? And those are easy discussions. For me, those are easy discussions of no, if it's not safe for kids to come to school, it's not safe for kids to come to practice. And so we did not allow any of that to occur during those days. We did find out that there were some facilities open, and so we just said, look, if people are wanting to get out and shoot and do whatever, this is a facility that's open, and we made it very clear, there's no organized practice, there's no, hey, we're gonna have an unorganized practice at this time, let's all meet up there. It was, all we're saying is this facility, like the FLC, was open, and so we said, FLC's open, they can go, get some shooting done on their own if they want. And so we maintain that. Moving into Wednesday. Now Wednesday was kind of a big day because this was now, we're getting into where things maybe are starting to kind of melt a little bit. We've cleared some things off. It felt like there was going to be a chance to possibly return on Thursday, but what we noticed were our streets around the school were still snow covered completely. So even though the sidewalks, the parking lot, those look great around our campus and we're safe, the street where the car line would be was not safe, was just ice. And so this is where it gets kind of fun a little bit. I say that jokingly a little bit, but we reached out to the city of Bethany. This is where some new details come in because this doesn't ever really happen. So we reached out to the city of Bethany because we felt like if we could clear the car line, then it was just a matter of people getting to the school campus block, which, as in the email stated later, we do trust that people will make their own decisions on what's safe for them, even if we are open. And so wanted to put that out there too, that just because we're saying, hey, it's safe for us to have school, we understand that there may be some people out there who say, I'm looking at my neighborhood and it's not safe for me to get there where I live. So always want the community to understand, we will be patient with that also. But we knew the block was a problem, so we reached out to the city of Bethany to see if they would clear around our block for us. And they declined that just for a very logical reason of they've got a lot of schools, not Bethany public schools, within Bethany, and they didn't have the manpower to be able to clear all the schools around that are in other districts as well. So that made sense to us, but then we thought, well, maybe they don't, but maybe we could. And so we began to look at, could the lawn care company that we hired to clear everything else, could they just go and honestly just spray salt on the roads? Because if it had salt and the sun that we were getting, it would have melted really quickly. Well, we called them, Mr. Mont called them, and they said we won't do public roads. And that got us thinking, there's probably a reason that they won't touch that, because we were willing to pay them to do it. Well, I called a parent of ours who also works in road construction and things like that, and just said, hey, is there something more to this as far as why they won't even do it? And he said, absolutely. There's a huge liability with salt, because salt is not good for roads, and if you start getting potholes and things like that, there could be liability on that. And so I said, well, so would you say that even for ourselves, like, we shouldn't do that? He said, I wouldn't do it unless you ask for permission from the city and see if they will do it. So Mr. Mont called the city and checked with them, and they were very clear. They said, we would not like you to do that. So that became, was not an option either. In the meantime of that conversation, and knowing now that there's some liability issues with working on public roads, even right around our campus, we had some community members who pushed some snow around in the neighborhood, and it wasn't something we directly reached out and asked for. We were just kind of inquiring about some options and things, and that was all it really needed, was to clear and get some of the pavement showing, and the sun did the rest. So then going into Wednesday night, Thursday, again, a lot of districts were closing because of neighborhoods and things like that, but we don't run buses, and so that was one instance where we thought, okay, we can be different from everybody else because we don't have to worry about buses. Our road is clear, our campus is clear, so a lot of them, there were a few districts, even bigger districts, who were waiting until the morning, but for us, we really hoped that we've done everything we can do. It may be good enough to have school. At the very least, we also thought, let's wait and see, not act. There was also some reports of freezing drizzle that morning.
Yeah.
And so a lot of districts honestly acted on that, and Friday taught me, let's not act on that, let's wait and see exactly what happens, and since we could. Also, there's some of that, while we always want to try to give families an opportunity to plan ahead, we also want families to understand that sometimes decisions like that might have to come last minute in the morning, and don't want them to necessarily get in the habit of they're always going to know the night before. So there was a little bit of that, but we just really wanted to be sure that what we were dealing with. So then that next morning, about 4 o'clock, got up, drove down the school, and the first intersection I came to was Mueller and 42nd, and there's a little bit of a downhill slope there, and I was really trying to drive like if I was going through the car line, and I just slid right through the intersection there and just got about halfway through the intersection before I stopped, and that's where all our high schoolers walk across from the parking lot. So that was not a good sign for the first stop. Drove around the block. Really, around the block wasn't terrible. But all those feeder roads coming in were just like they had been. And so then drove around the Bethany neighborhood. Also realized students walking to school, there was no safe way to get to school if you were walking to school, because all the roads, which we don't have sidewalks in Bethany, and all the roads were black ice basically. At that point, it wasn't just snow covered, it was like black ice everywhere. So that was not a good sign, but I went ahead and drove around some other neighborhoods around and saw a lot of the same. There was a lot of black ice, a lot of sliding into stops, not into, but like not just directly stopping at stop signs. And so that one was a little bit harder because we were optimistic. Then also superintendents who had waited till the morning kind of started chiming in, but at that point I pretty much knew this wasn't going to work for us, and so we all kind of at the same time kind of chimed in like, yeah, it's not going to work for us either. And so that was Thursday. Now there was some also unique, so typically canceled school, but we still had some activities that now were under discussion again, because the basketball team was going to play on Friday, and they had not at this point been able to practice all week. So I asked Mr. Chafee, is there any significant injury risk to not practicing all week and then getting out and playing a game? And he put me at ease a little bit in that conversation of maybe a little bit, but maybe more psychological, just not being prepared and things like that. But I wasn't as much worried about that as just like pulling muscles and other risks associated with that. We also had swim was supposed to go to Edmond, and it was going to be a senior night. So we really, knowing that things were going to melt pretty quickly in the morning, we really didn't want them to miss that opportunity. At the end of the day, we learned that that was more of a general senior night for a lot of schools, not necessarily just us. And our team decided not to go before we even made the decision to go or not go. But that was, again, I would consider that a unique circumstance, because Thursday morning we knew it was going to melt very quickly once the sun came out on Thursday day. So Mr. Martineau, in fact, we had talked, and he was going to drive around 11, 12 o'clock before any decisions about basketball practice or the swim meet was going to happen. By the time we got to that afternoon, basketball had already said we're good. We don't need to worry about it. Swim also said we're not going to the meet, so it kind of took that off the table, anyways. Yeah. But again, that would be feedback I would look forward to hearing from, because there could be a hard line, which I would tell you I lean that way, of like no school, no activities. But then there were two instances in this case where maybe some common sense or logic, or I say common sense, logic might get you to a place of like, maybe it does make sense to let this happen or not. So I would take feedback on that. In the meantime I missed something. Going into the Thursday decision, you guys probably saw the email that went out, because when we had done everything that we could possibly do, and now we're just waiting to see if it melts, we also felt like if we came to school on Thursday, there was still going to be some risk involved. Like, it was not going to be perfectly clear, but we really, really wanted to try to have school. So we decided to focus on something we could control, and we worked on the email that was sent out that shared our concerns. Student drivers concerned us. We felt like it may be safe for adults who have experience. I wouldn't trust a sophomore, junior, senior necessarily to drive in it, and I knew that was going to be questionable. So wanted to share that with parents that, hey, if at all possible, if we do have school, maybe encourage you to drop off. Another one we talked about was closed campus. Felt really strongly about that if those side roads weren't good, when you release the kids, student drivers out for lunch, you don't know where they're going to go and what fun they're going to look to have during that time away from school. So we wanted to close campus if we were able to do it. And we knew whether we were able to have school Thursday or not, it was probably even more likely Friday, and all the same things would apply. So we thought if we send that out on Wednesday and we're in school on Thursday, it applies. If not, still going to apply for Friday. That included morning practice, because they get here at 7. Wouldn't want that necessarily. So those were things that we worked on. I did get great feedback from the email from parents and actually staff, which that surprised me a little bit. But great feedback from that email, and I think it helped us then that Friday when we were able to return. And then just some other notes within all this. So when we had our 4 days of snow days, and now we're going into Thursday, I checked with Mrs. Lott to say, hey, can you check our 1,086 hours to make sure that we have snow days left, and that if we don't, we need to figure out options moving forward. And so Mrs. Lott redid the calculations just to confirm, and a couple things we learned, that we knew that I'll share. So middle school and elementary school have 20-minute lunches. So that gives them essentially 20 more minutes than high school has every day. Mm-hmm. Middle school and high school have late start. Late start does take off 30 minutes a week, but if you cancel late start the whole second semester, you're only going to gain back 1 day when you add all those 30 minutes up. So side note on that, but it does take away minutes from middle school and high school throughout the year. But high school has 40-minute lunches and late start. So they have the fewest days of any of the 3 schools, and all 3 schools have different number of days that they can miss. So that is a little bit tricky in that high school at that point after 4 days had run out of snow days, but middle school still had 6+ to give, and elementary probably has like 12+ to give, or something, some high number like that. Yeah. And so they probably, we're not going to run into issues either way. We also, so then we were talking about should middle school and high school go to like a virtual day for two reasons. One, for the loss of the snow days that we had, but also because at that point everybody's stir crazy, and honestly, you don't want them. And they're going to miss a whole week, and you're starting all over. So we even thought about just giving them work just to get them reacclimated, so when they come back, we're not just starting all over. Well, middle school does not take devices home. High school is the only school that actually takes devices home on a daily basis, so that would not have worked to have middle school do it. So at that point, high school needed the day, no one else really did, so we moved to high school doing the virtual day. In the future, the state has already passed legislation that starting next year, schools can only use virtual days if a state of emergency is declared in Oklahoma, and they can only use 2 days at that. So pretty much we, as a board and administration, we have to account for the fact that virtual, and I would say that's not a bad thing, but those are really not an option in the future, because even during this week, there was not a state of emergency declared. That would not have counted. So we looked with Mrs. Melton, Mr. Jewell, like what options do we have in the future? One tricky day is our April day. Right now on our calendar, we have a day off in April, and it is labeled as a snow makeup day, which it can be, and that's fine, except what we've learned in all this is the high school is really the only one that's probably ever going to need a snow makeup day. So, and I don't know if we would want to, two ways, say high school you need to come but the other don't, probably not. And I don't know that I don't know if we'd want to say, okay, everybody comes to school because high school's out. And so that's just something to think about. Don't have an answer. I do think there could be a change in the calendar to either make it a snow makeup day or not, or just say it's a day in April that we're going to take off. It is the day that we have prom. Sometimes it falls on Good Friday. There are some reasons for that date. It's also, there's not many breaks between that and the end of school, and that's right in the middle of testing, and it's kind of a break there. So I think we could change some language on that if we truly don't know that we'll use that for a snow makeup day, or we could use it as snow makeup day and just have everybody come to school if any of the schools run out. So something to think about there as it relates to snow days, and really looking ahead to the future of that. The other options for making up time in the future would be add minutes to every day. So you add 7 minutes, to the 10 minutes, and you balance that out. And don't know that it would be the best utilized minutes that you're adding on, but technically that's what we used to do. The only other option is to add days to the calendar at the end, and then you're past graduation, past Memorial Day maybe, and so you're just having to look at a lot more things, which we will have to consider in the future when virtual days go away. So make sure I'm not missing anything there. Another thing that we look at is late start. So some of those days in the morning, it's frozen, but maybe it melts a little bit pretty quickly. The challenge that we have with starting later, so starting at say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, in this case it was actually because we were out of minutes anyways at the high school level, so starting late we were still going to have to make up some of that time. But generally speaking, the other big issue with that is that our kitchen staff has to be here about 3 hours before everyone else anyways. So for us to do let's just say 10 o'clock start, that kitchen staff would still have to be here when we're saying it's not safe for anybody else to be getting here. They're still gonna have to get here to get ready for breakfast and lunches. So that's always the challenge with that is we would just be saying, hey, we're not gonna have the masses come because we don't feel like it's safe until 9 or 10 o'clock, but we do need you guys to come on in and get ready for school that day. So that's the challenge with that one. It's possible we could make that work and just ask them to do that, but that's one of the challenges with just having a late start. So and then I'll say this, with all of that, we do have an awesome community. I would tell you guys that through all of that, and you get into 4 and 5 days, it's people are ready to get back to routine, and but I did not have one negative email. Our community is just so patient, so gracious. I think they realize, you know, it is a challenge in every situation, but I don't think there's probably too many school districts or superintendents who probably can say the same thing. I was shocked, honestly, that there wasn't more, you know, negative feedback, because people get antsy, and you know, people, it's disruptive, and we know that, and so the grace that our community, you know, shows and continues to show is just amazing, and just appreciate that. But so yeah, that's kind of the snow days in a nutshell. But it did provide a lot of scenarios to talk through. So, what questions do you guys have?
Certainly unprecedented, storm that we had that we don't often get anything like that, especially for that extended period of time. So thanks for providing us an update and allowing us to understand a little bit about what goes into those decisions. So any questions that you all have?
I think it's easier in hindsight now, but how does the fact that the city of Bethany won't clear the streets impact your ability to pull the trigger on clearing the parking lots and sidewalks, or paying that $8,100 out?
Yeah, it's really tricky. Well, I'll add a side note to all of this. So whenever I was reaching out to see if, knowing the city wouldn't clear the block, which again, I completely understand their perspective on that, but it was going to be about 30. There was one person that I knew that was willing to do that for about $3,500. So it's a very tough thing to say, okay, we have a chance to have school for $3,500, which I would say, if we knew for a fact $3,500 we get back in school, it's not an easy decision, but I mean,
That was to clear the roads.
need to clear the roads.
Yeah.
Clear the roads.
We've already paid the $8,100 to solve,
And that's right.
right?
So we've already done that. So that was very tempting until we learned that we probably shouldn't do that for liability's sake. But those are the tough decisions. But I will say this: one thing that makes that a little bit easier, and this was just a little bit unique, because most of the time you're gonna have snow and it's gonna melt, pretty quickly. I mean, historically, it's gonna melt away, or you can run with your standard crew and just get it cleared up in the parking lot. Being black and blacktop, it usually melts a lot faster, and so so you usually can count on that. Yeah, we're gonna miss school, but in a few days it's gonna kind of take care of itself, or we do a little bit of work on it, it's gonna take care. That was just not the case in this one. But 8,000, 9,000, those numbers are nothing compared to a slip. One person, one staff member slips and falls, and what that's going to cost us, you just can't even, weigh that out. So to have that chance and make sure truly everyone is safe to come back, sometimes you just have to do it. Usually, I would say, Mr. Mont and his crew, in most situations, are probably able to take care of that. And historically, when we have just maybe a little bit, but it is slick, they're able to go through with their own salt, little dispensers, and do that, and it works just fine. But when you have something like this, you just know there's no way we can handle that with the equipment that we have. So
I would also say, in response to your question, I'm not sure, had we not cleared the parking lots, I'm not sure the parking lots would have been in any kind of condition for anybody to walk through, even on Friday.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Especially the north side over here at the high school, because it's always in the shade because of that building casts the shadow over it in that parking lot.
Yeah.
I think in that regard, it makes a lot of sense to you guys take care of the school first, and then whenever the city is safe to travel through, then the school's ready already.
Yeah. And it is hard because we have an advantage and a huge disadvantage. And I mentioned earlier, but the huge advantage is buses. The fact that we don't have to run buses. I've been a bus driver for Putnam City way back in the day. I've slidden sideways on a bus on a day that we had school, and I'll never forget it. And I don't envy any superintendent who has to make a call about buses, because an empty bus on ice is the worst thing you could be driving. So we don't have that problem. But the problem we have is we have families coming from everywhere, and so, you know, it's impossible, and that was really the point of the email was, we can't know what everyone's started, all the way out to Banner, Piedmont, Deer Creek. I mean, they're coming from everywhere. So truly would tell anybody, you've got to make a decision for what you feel is safe. And I would beg, please make a decision for yourself, because it's a heavy burden to say, hey, come to school, knowing someone could get in the wreck on the way there. That's heavy, but I hope people will make their own judgment for their own family, their own kids, and no, we're going to be understanding of that. So if you say wasn't safe for my kid, we'll say excused absence. You know,
Yeah.
It'll be an absence, but it'll be an excused absence. So
I think you made the right decision. I mean, I do. I think, you know, at my shop, you know, we have to make decisions too. I have, you know, all the way out to Weatherford, I have branches. But unlike you, we can start late, you know, and I think that's, you know, that's kind of a bad thing. I had never thought about the kitchen staff coming in when it's really dangerous. In order to have kids, even if you came in late, they would still have to come in before everybody. So, I mean, you don't have that option, it sounds like, to start later. Or even, and I guess it's a little bit difficult to let go early even.
yeah.
But I would say that, you know, with regard to having activities
Mhm.
when you've let out school, we all live in Oklahoma. What happens at 8 o'clock in the morning may be completely different at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, you know, just this very day, it's a 20-degree difference than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what may have been a dangerous scenario in the morning could be perfectly safe in the afternoon. And so I think that you just have to judge that on each case scenario, you know, on what the day looks like. If you know it's bad this morning, but it's all gonna melt off, then, you know, you can have activities in the afternoon, well, if it's safe, you know.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't worry about, I would make it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Rather than a hard and fast rule that you're never gonna do it if you don't have it.
Yeah.
If you have a snow day, you know, you're nixing all of the activities. I don't think you have to do that as a matter of course.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, it's the thing that ran through our mind, Mr. Marchionneau and I talked about even to that day, because even the morning of saying, okay, we're gonna go play, but we're still watching the weather, because if the boys, they played at 10, if they get there and it's already starting, we may just make sure they know they may be coming back before they play. And so you're still, you know, kind of, but in my mind, truly the scariest thing is we're not having school, but we're gonna go play a game, then it gets bad, then there's a wreck on the way back, and honestly, it's that perspective of, well, we didn't have school, but then a bus got in a wreck on the way back going to a basket. So all of that plays into all of our minds, and but
Friday
you do
was
have
a
to
little
use logic
different.
to some degree.
Friday
as well.
was a little
That's
different
right.
than Thursday.
That's right.
You know, because
That's right.
Thursday you're on the way to better.
Yeah.
you
I
know.
guess I see all that to say, you know, even then, you know, appreciate use some logic in all of it,
Mhm.
but we don't take that lightly either,
Yeah.
because you just have to think through all those possible worst case scenarios, honestly, is what you're
Right.
thinking about.
Yeah, sure
And-
you are.
And I will say Friday when we had school, looking around, I was like, okay, yes, as much as I was between at 4:30 a.m., like, could we maybe? Friday was like, oh no, this is when you come to school.
Yeah,
So I
right.
did feel much better on Friday.
How did the closed campus work with the high school?
You know, from my perspective,
You were at the other end of the building.
yeah. You know, I would honestly say, and maybe just the communication. Again, I'll tell you, the only feedback I got from sending the letter out was positive feedback, and it was, appreciate you thinking about our kids. Thank you for, you know, closing campus, and just for thinking about that as a you know, need. And so I just think, I did say I walked down here during that closed campus. So I didn't just stay down there, but and honestly, the kids, they were scattered, you know, gym and different places, but it didn't seem like an issue at all. And I think I think probably just them knowing coming in that that was what it's going to be, and yeah, if you, well, I won't go that far.
Lots of DoorDash delivery.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Anything else I missed? I mean, I didn't notice anything that day being significantly bad, but
No,
I don't wanna miss
it
anything.
wasn't bad. Our teachers stepped in to help do some supervision because we usually only have one grade level on campus. So
Yeah.
we had, I'd say, closer to 3.5 when we account for kids in concurrent and CV Tech who are not at school. But yeah, I would say that it went well.
Good.
yeah.
I think the kids enjoyed it, and the lunch ladies
Yeah.
enjoyed having those kids back who used to be at lunch all the time, but now are off campus. So I
Yeah.
think it made their day too.
That's good.
The one question I had would be the Friday leading up to it. With you made mention of, I just made a note, that we would want to make sure that we got through all the lunches. It kind of explained that. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
instead of it being an early release, you said we want to make sure we get through all the lunches. Lunches start at 10:30, 10:45 for
Yep.
the elementary. Is that right?
That's about that. Yep. So we eat. Elementary eats at the elementary
Okay.
only. Middle school and high school now eat at the high school. So lunches, elementary. When I have the text message, elementaries would get done about 12:15. So they get done a little bit earlier. But middle school and high school is actually the one that goes till about 1:15. But we had talked about we could make that work to where they got done. I checked with Mr. Rigdon in the kitchen. I checked with Mr. Jewell, and we had a plan to make sure we got everyone fed by 1 o'clock. And about the time that we had all that figured out was when everybody was closed. There wasn't anybody even close that was open, all the way to Norman, Moore, just everywhere. So, and I'll be honest, you know, that's also a situation where, just to be fully transparent about what's going through my mind in that mode is, okay, so we could do an early release, but we're going to be the only people in the whole metro area that's going to have early release. And I knew two things were probably going to happen. One, a lot of people wouldn't come anyways because everyone else is closed. And two, a lot of kids probably aren't going to be happy about it. Now again, that's not why you make a decision, but I did know, you know, a lot of people are going to look at that a certain way of like, we're the only school anywhere that's open. And the biggest worry, the biggest fear is then something happens and, okay, you were the only superintendent, the only district that made this decision, and the weather did come at noon, and that's honestly, that's a lot harder to justify than if you're, you know, safety in numbers, if you will, like, you know, and that's hard. I mean, because I'll be honest, I didn't, and you guys, I think, knew it through my text messages of just kind of communicating. I didn't feel great about that one. I was like, I don't know about this one. I think there's a pretty good chance that it may come a little bit later. It could come closer to 4. And so I was really, I don't know, really trying to think through that. But then everybody just closed, and I don't know. Part of me just didn't want to be the only person, literally the only person that says, "Hey, we'll give it a shot," and then it comes earlier or it happens in the middle of the day. And the other big thing about that is, and I think any administrator will tell you, when snow starts to fall in the middle of the day, parents just show up and check their kid out.
Sure.
And it is nonstop. In fact, there have been days where you don't even go get kids anymore. You get on the PA. I need Isaac Bellows. I need this, and that's the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So then, you know, teachers who are the only ones in the community there, students are the only ones in the community there, and now their whole second half of their day is, we need this person, we need this person. You know, that's a tough thing if it happens, but
Not real productive in the classroom.
not real productive. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that thorough update. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yep.
Very much so. Item number 6, staff reports.
I think tonight we'll let you guys kind of look through a little bit. Ms. Campbell, Ms. Silva, sorry.
I'll answer that.
Yeah.
Okay, so for the high school, we wanted to talk to you guys. I printed this out because I thought it was interesting. As you can see on our report, and we also highlighted it in our newsletter, we were named to the AP School Honor Roll, and that is quite an honor. We are one of 23 high schools in Oklahoma to receive that honor. So this paper, on the backside, it will show you the other schools in Oklahoma that received that honor. And then you can see we're in some pretty good company. We got the bronze recognition, and that means that 40% or more of our graduating cohort took at least one AP exam during high school. 25% or more of the graduating cohort scored a 3 or higher on at least one AP exam, and 2% or more took 5 or more AP exams during high school. And so that's quite a big deal that we're able to do that. A lot of that credit goes to our counselors who make sure that all of that information is in the system so that we are able to be recognized. And then of course our students and our teachers do an incredible job. This being my first year here, I've been so impressed with our teachers and our students. They work at a very high level and it's very impressive. So.
Just for clarification, this would be for last year's class,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for school year 24-25.
Yes.
Great, I saw that on there and I wondered what the
Yeah.
you know, what led you to get that.
Yeah, I'll hand you this one too. I only have one copy of this one, but it tells you each level, what you have to do to
okay.
get those distinctions, so.
So I'm realizing for the first time, something I didn't know before, that we were one of only 4 schools to be on it for the first time. So a lot of these schools have been on here, but
And quite a few
it
private
seems like
schools.
it's hard to get, to get
Yeah.
to that point. 'Cause there are only 4 new schools that have been added, so that's
Definitely.
interesting.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Any other questions about that?
That's great.
One thing that Mrs. Chavez wanted me to share a little bit is the elementary is applying for an OETT grant, and Mr. Forster
Yeah.
may know a little bit more about their specific plan, but there's a lot of, we've gotten the grant through multiple schools, multiple times as the district. Elementary took that on this year. It's a technology grant through the K-20 schools, and so it's a lot of hard work, but it's a lot of funding for technology. And so, and actually their plan, again, don't remember all the details, but their plan had a lot of teacher growth, a lot of professional development included in it. They went to the K-20 center and they saw a lot of innovative things, came back with some ideas, but our focus this year has been instruction, teaching practices, strategies, and they kind of searched a little bit more and went a little deeper to try to find something that also fit that. And so, Ms. Chavez just wanted me to let you guys know that they're really excited about that and really optimistic of their chance of getting that, but a lot of hard work's going into it, so we're excited for them as well.
Right.
Anything else to add, Mr. Forrester?
No, I think just it's all about kind of with the K-20 Center, authentic learning experiences. So they really tried to play into, what could a teacher, a lot of times is getting teachers to use that in the classroom. There's a lot of barriers to that with, professional development and ease of use and all that. So they focused on making it, compact in carts that they could, some of the different types of robots that they're trying to get, that the teacher could just wheel that in their classroom with the professional development that comes with it, and really just get to work and using those with the kids. So we focused on, just trying to get things that are easily implementable in their classroom. So.
And there is a little bit of fund matching, I think, with those
Yes.
programs typically as well. So, we as a district will support that grant through providing some matching funds, but it's definitely worth the benefit that we get back. So.
One question I had I saw that the middle school went out to Canadian Valley, right, for their big field trip out there. How many students do we have that attend Canadian Valley? How many high school students attend, or how many slots are we allowed here at Bethany, right? I mean,
That's a great question. I don't know how many slots we're allowed necessarily. I don't know that there's a specific number on that, but I can look and tell you how many kids we have in those programs. We had interviews for our 10th graders who are wanting to join the program today. So
okay.
there's a lot of
So they would go as juniors. So their first opportunity to go is as a junior.
I think so.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Typically that is the case. Let me see right here.
Okay.
And I do think there is a kind of an allotment for our school. Like, I do think there's a number that they kind of give us.
That they provide.
Yeah, I don't know the number, but I've had that conversation before in the past.
It looks like we have about 50 students currently.
That's a lot.
Which,
Yeah.
well,
Out of 2 grades.
yeah,
Still, I
and
think
it's
that's a lot.
grown significantly.
25%.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that many.
Yeah.
at all.
25% a grade. I mean,
Mhm.
if you have 100 people in a grade,
120,
you've got a
so-
little over 100
Yeah.
people in a grade, but
Yeah.
22%.
So the number they've allotted us has grown, I know that, and, I mean, it's just, rightfully so, I think it's just, truly, we're in a place now where, most people, us included, preach that there are a lot of different paths, and career, employment, that's the one E, employment, this is how you can fast track to a career alternative to going to college or enlisting. So enrollment, enlisting, employment. This is employment, and I think our communities need this to thrive because a lot of the trade, businesses are struggling to also have people working in them, and I think as communities we see that, and so most school districts are encouraging that, just like we encourage enrollment into college, just like we would encourage someone to enlist if that's what they want to do as well. So it's not used to a long time ago. It used to be, well, if you can't do this, maybe do that. It's just not that way anymore. It's a very viable way to leave the program making good money, and a lot of kids are finding that out. So, and we're really encouraging as an option. So.
Well, I mean, the pathways option is something that is going to be required as part of the graduation requirements. I mean, there's a number of ways of getting there, right?
Yep.
By attending, career tech, 20% of each class, let's say, is going right now. By this standard, we had 25% of the students that are in a concurrent class, so that's part of it that meets that requirement
Right.
as well. When we think about the rest of our students, what is the plan for making sure that they are in a path to meet that graduation requirement? Are we looking at different paths that, I know we have the aviation piece that's going on, so that's one thing. What are some other paths that we've investigated or are looking at,
So.
or have in place already, I guess?
Yeah, so Mrs. Melton probably would be the best person for all of us to talk to about this, but she has taken the new graduation requirements, and we always have had a kind of a tracking sheet for students for graduation requirements. We've updated that for the new graduation requirements, and she sits down with students and goes through what they've already had, what they need. The pathways provide a lot more flexibility. So students are working towards the same goal, graduation, but there's a lot more flexibility for various paths. So your elective choices can vary a lot more. Used to, you had to have, don't want to throw out too much here like I'm an expert, but 2 foreign languages and certain fine arts and certain, they've freed that up a lot to where not everyone necessarily needs to have that. And so it's much more individualized, which is a great thing.
Is that this year?
Actually, so the 8th grade class right now is the first class that will be fully implemented into the new path when they graduate. Another change within that is like 8th grade math. If they're taking the advanced math track, that actually does count for high school now, whereas in the past that didn't. So there are a number of changes. And honestly, I will say Mrs. Melton is very respected amongst the community. She is actually providing a lot of help to other counselors in other districts to make sure that they're, following the things that they need to follow. And it's pretty great. We've been to several professional development opportunities where they're kind of making sure everyone's on the right track, and they're some of the first people to speak out and talk about what we're doing. And so I feel really, really good. Mr. Joel feels really, really good about, that we've got kids on that track. So, do you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. And the answer that I got in our little group chat here is that our limit depends on the program, but also there's not a specific number for like all Bethany students. Mrs. Milton said we don't get a set number of students as a guarantee. They accept who they accept based on all feeder schools.
And per program.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have a set number that
At their program.
Right.
There you
All
go.
in. And one of the things when we talk about going to CV Tech or going to and doing that pathway, we have to remember is it's not like those kids are gone, completely removed. Many of them come back and are in football and basketball and activities, you know, choir, things like that, and so, and they still have to take English.
Yeah, they're still
They
here
still
for
have
half
to take
day.
it. They're still here half a day. So, you know, it's not like they're completely removed. I worry about that that they don't have that connection anymore with maybe some of the kids that they have here and things like that. But I think it's a good bridge. I know for my own kid it was. I felt like she didn't do that. She was more of the concurrent, and so she didn't have to be on site. But I know last year, at least when I was in the office, we had a lot more kids coming into the library to do their work and not leave campus, which I enjoyed. I was glad that they did that because I saw them in here, you know, collaborating, if they had the same class, things like that, talking about the assignment, and just working together.
Yeah.
And so,
That's great. You're speaking, so activities, fantastic activities. We got a lot of great things going on.
segue, we do. Swim has qualified several people for swim state.
See that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's, well, I'll go on about that in a minute, but band and orchestra, they have, they have some competitions going on. February 18th, they're going to Santa Fe High School, going to do sight reading there. Also, one of the things that I didn't put on here because it just kind of happened, and it was after the fact that I thought about, because all of our spring sports are getting geared up. We have about a week before everything. Soccer starts scrimmaging, baseball starts scrimmaging, and that's why I was thinking track along those lines. But they went actually to an indoor meet. Coach Forrester was there, and we had some kids that qualified for indoor state. Morgan McNutt actually qualified #1 in her event in the entire state.
Wow.
In the mile. So we just, again, as we know, the kids here are phenomenal and just so proud. And basketball has had a great year so far. Both of them right around the top 10. Girls were ranked 8th last week, at the end of last week, and the boys were ranked 11th. So we both, as Dr. Bello said, qualified or are hosting districts here on Saturday. Aztec Charter will be here Saturday. Not this Saturday, the following Saturday, the 21st. And then we are hosting a sub-site regional. That the regional site is actually Weatherford, and then the area site is Stroud. So that's been determined as of just last day or so, and so we don't have very far to drive, as Dr. Bell said. But it obviously going to Stroud, you wouldn't want them if the weather got bad or something. But you know, our kids, I'm just amazed at what our kids are doing, and you know, it's a breath of fresh air to see it day in and day out. Just sometimes we take this for granted, or at least when you do it each month and you guys see these things each month. But when I really stopped and thought about it and thought about all these kids doing different things, it's just it's something to really be proud of, and I know you all are, and I am too.
Yeah. Thank you. That's great.
I'll add too, our middle school programs have had awesome years in just about every sport. We've got a lot of great talent coming up. It's just exciting. I mean,
The future's bright.
yeah, future is bright.
Just yeah,
Good stuff.
we're excited about where it's headed and where it's been and currently what we're doing. And so the girls are actually playing right now in Weatherford. So I think it's halftime.
Excellent. Anyone else have any questions? Staff reports? Item 7, proposed executive session to discuss the employment and or resignation of an employee as listed in addendums A, B, and C as authorized by 250S 307B1.
Do we need to go
I think
into
so,
exec-
I think.
Okay, you
Yep.
make a motion to
Yep.
go into executive session.
Non-action.
Second?
Oh, do we need to vote?
No, she was right.
Okay.
Ryder?
Oh, vote to number
Yes.
7A, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Palmer?
Yes.
Yates?
Yes.
Wallstad?
Yes. 7C. All right. Agenda item 7C. Executive session, excuse me. Let the record reflect the board voted to enter into executive session at, let me refresh, 7:10 p.m. and exited executive session at 7:33 p.m. The board discussed only agenda item number 7. No votes or actions were taken. Item number 8, discussion of possible action on the employment of employees in Addendum A as authorized by 25 OS 307B1 for the 2025-2026 school year.
Motion to approve the employment of employees on Addendum A for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
Here in a second. Roll call vote.
Reiner,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes. Item number 9, discussion of possible action on the resignation and retirement of employees in Addendum B as authorized by 25 OS 307B1 for the 2026-2027 school year.
I make a motion to approve the resignations and retiring of employees in Addendum B for the 26-27 school year.
Second.
Second. Roll call vote.
Reiner,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes. Item number 10, discussion of possible action on the resignation of employees in Addendum C as authorized by 25 OS 307B1 for the 2025-2026 school year.
Make a motion to approve the resignations of employees in Addendum C for the 25-26 school year.
Second.
In a second, roll call vote.
Reiner,
Yes.
Palmer,
Yes.
Yates.
Yes.
Wallstad.
Yes. That wraps up our agenda information.
All right, so looking forward to honoring our board members for the makeup of Board Appreciation Night this Thursday evening. So we hope anyone will join us at halftime of the boys' game this Thursday to do that, and looking forward to that. Middle school and high school parent-teacher conferences will be February 24th and 26th. We'll have no school on February 27th. Junior class Cadova fundraiser night is March 4th. Elementary parent-teacher conferences will be March 10th and 12th, and then spring break will be March 16th through the 20th.
Thank you, Dr. Bellows. Board member comments. Anyone have anything to share? Superintendent report.
All right, celebration. Just want to celebrate our Special Services Department for the recent SLP conference that they had. We had over 270 professionals, SLP professionals from across the state fill the atrium in the church across the street on the conference that we hosted. And the numbers are just staggering. It has kind of become the place to come and get professional development in that field. And it benefits our program greatly because that is also has become a fundraiser for our program. So in talking to Ms. Bernhard, Ms. Yakeley, Ms. Williams, Ms. Cheryl, who also helps with all the organization, it's a lot of work. But according to them, I said, you guys have to be one of the best funded programs just because of this conference. They said, I think we are. So it is a lot of work, but it has kind of become the place to attend professional development in that field, and it's great to be a leader in that, and that our staff is providing that. So huge celebration and congratulations to them. We also have Daddy-Daughter Ball coming up. That has been rescheduled for Friday, February 27th. We don't have school that day, so even though it's a Friday, it's kind of like having it on a Saturday, but that was the best day that we had to do that, and it's at the Cube. And I know there are a lot of people looking forward to that, myself included. I'll be taking my senior daughter, who actually is bringing some senior friends, so
That's
not
good.
a lot of upperclassmen are
Right.
actually passing on to attend, but hopefully we're starting a little trend where some will continue on, but looking forward to that makeup. Legislative session has begun, and there are several hot topics being discussed right now. Property tax changes is a big one, and so we're keeping a close eye on that. The big conversation right now is what is the defined or lack of a defined plan to replace revenue from that, and so that's something we're just keeping our eye closely on as a school district, and an agency that is funded heavily from property tax and ad valorem. That's very important to us, so we want to watch that very closely and just see how that progresses, but it is a very hot topic across the state right now. Another hot topic is literacy, especially early childhood literacy, and there's a lot of discussion about changes, revisiting things like retention, revisiting things like reading coaches, and just a lot of ideas that are centered around the great cause of helping students learn to read at an early age, but a lot of varying ideas out there about how to best do that. And so our goal as educators is to make sure that we're a part of that conversation and make sure that we're giving our feedback into that as well, to legislators, to people making those legislative decisions. And so that is another very hot topic that school districts and school leaders just want to make sure that we're a part of that conversation and not just sitting back letting those conversations happen without us. We also have several other topics that we'll keep watching, but as it's just getting going, there are, I want to say the number was about 2,600 bills. You know, Oklahoma has a history of having a lot of things. Most of them probably will never see the light of day, so we'll let some of those kind of filter out as we pay attention to them. But we had signing day, and that included 7 more athletes who are going on to the next level. Love what that is looking like. Very organized, very well done to honor those kids going to the next level. And also just want to celebrate the students, number one, the families who, you know, have that dream to play at the next level and have reached that goal. And also just thank our coaches for the investment they've made into those kids to help them get to that place. But that's, you know, we continue to see a lot of kids signing at the next level, and if that's their goal and their dream, we want to help them achieve that. We also celebrated Counselor Appreciation Week recently, and just want to say thank you to our counselors. The job is a very diverse job. We know that it is counseling students. It's watching students closely. It's building relationships with students. It's helping them to make sure they're meeting their graduation requirements, and it's just a very, very diverse job that includes a lot of things, including meeting with students and counseling them. So can't thank them more for all that they do, and we've got a lot of people with big hearts serving that role for us. And finally, looking forward to see how our swim team and basketball teams do in state and then upcoming playoffs, and just want to congratulate all of them for making it to either state or the playoffs, and look forward to seeing them compete at those levels. So that is my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Bellows. Item 14, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for being here.
Yeah.